Good evening. Good evening, everybody. How are you doing today? Thank you for showing up here again. Okay, happy Easter. Yes, it's Easter Sunday. Happy Easter. Thank you for joining. Okay, so how have you been? Do you have holidays? Yes, you're supposed to be coming holiday, but are you actually resting? How many of us are still working, like working really serious? How many of us are still working? Did you find time to rest at all? Okay, I would want to know. I want to know. Okay, so welcome everybody to today's live session. Of course, if you're catching a replay, let me know that I'm catching a replay. Okay, so we are in a series of trauma, right? Trauma. Last week we looked at introduction to trauma, and we looked at signs that you want to watch out for, right, as a parent. But of course, like I said, it's a series talk. You can't finish from my one day, right? And so today we would continue. Thank you for joining me. I will not take it for granted. So today we'll continue on the topic, of course, the broad topic trauma. Well, we are going to be looking at how trauma shows up in our children. Hello, blessing. Good to see you. How trauma shows up in our children. Okay, so I'm going to be asking us at this point that if we had not seen the video from last week Sunday, from last week, please, you want to go catch the replay. That way you can easily understand what we are discussing right today. We are going to continue, right? So welcome again, and if you want to grab a book, it's fine. Okay, so how trauma shows up in our children. Of course, our children are precious to us, right? If you're a parent, you're an educator, that's a teacher, maybe even working in church, in school, anywhere that has children, please, this is very important. Okay, now it's important that we know that trauma is not just what happens to us. It's not just what has happened to your child. It is how your child behaves. It's how your child reacts. It's how your child thinks because of that trauma or the traumatic event that has happened to the child, right? So it's not just the rape, it's not just the accident, it's not just the abuse, but how it now plays out daily in their lives. That's trauma, right? So it's not just she had it. So how is she reacting because of the abuse? How is it behaving because of the abuse? How has the abused or not only of the event changed their thinking? That's trauma. So I think that's signs that we would watch out for in our children, how it shows up, right? So starting with that, today we are going to be looking at how trauma affects the brain. How trauma affects the brain. Now, usually the brain is wired for survival, right? So when a child experiences trauma, right? What has happened is that brain, right, is now very hyperactive. That part of the brain, now it's supposed, of course, we have different parts of the brain, and then we are going to be seeing. Now becomes hyper alert. Any small thing, any small trigger, the child starts, anything that happens, right, that normally would have not caused a reaction because the child has gone through a traumatic experience. And of course, the brain is more sensitive, it's more hyperactive than it should be. Now we have three parts of the brain that trauma affects, right? Now, there's what we call the amygdala, right? So this part is the alarm system of the brain. So when anything is happening to us, the alarm is the one that alerts the body, the brain, hey, something wrong is happening, just like an alarm system, right? If you go to some hotels, they have an alarm system, but when it catches any form of smoke, and they will tell you don't smoke inside the hotel because once that alarm system catches a little smoke, right? The alarm sounds begin to blare, right? Because we wouldn't want you to bring down the hotel with fire. So that little smoke, once the alarm system catches it, you just start, so it's somehow, hey, there's fire here, or there's an alert here, right? So watch out for it. And that's what the amygdala does in our brain. It keeps us alert, right, for survival. Another part of the brain that trauma affects the precursors part of the brain, and this is the thinking brain. Now, usually in adolescents, the thinking brain is not yet developed. In children, it's not developed. Okay, so that's how they tell you children they decide naturally they do not most times think of the consequences, right? Because their precursors brain is not fully developed. Now, research says that the child's precursors brain, right, keeps growing to ages 25, right? So it affects the thinking brain of the child, and that's why they don't think naturally. Now imagine if that child has experienced any form of trauma. What happens? Now the alarm system is on. The thinking brain, they think faster, right? They don't even have time to process the information. Again, of course, the hippocampus, which is the memory center. Now, so trauma affects on the amygdala, the the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus of every child, right? So now, um, how it affects the child, we're going to see it. Now, for every trauma, there are four responses to get, right? There are four responses to every form of trauma. Now, we have the fight, we have the flight, we have the freeze, and we have the fawn. Fight, flight, fight, freeze, and fawn. Now, let's look at it this way. For fight, right? Now, most times when we see children very aggressive, we think this child is disobedient, is misbehaving, he's stubborn, right? Now, fight is a response to trauma. So a child dealing with trauma can fight back. So looking at aggression, we're looking at showing tantrums, we're looking at hitting or yelling, right? So for instance, a child who has always witnessed the dad beat the mom. Now that beating was not for the child. The child wasn't the one receiving the beating, as it were. But the child has watched that the father is always beating the mother. One way that child can respond to that trauma is he knows or he now feels or she now feels that to be in control at every point in time, I must be aggressive. I must beat people. I must hit them. I must yell at them. So, hey, anytime you see a child hit his yell at any slightest provocation, the child is fighting, and that's a trauma response. And don't forget that whatever is trauma, whatever, like we can't define what trauma is to a child, right? Of course, we know abuse, we know violent behavior is trauma. Now, every child will respond differently, and that's why we are looking at the four response, right? So, a child can fight, fight back as a response to trauma. And so, you see a child in class, in church, in any setting, always beating people, always hitting them, always chatting from them. Why? He or she feels that that is the way it should go. I will beat people, I will hit them. That's trauma. He or she has already seen it from the house, right? Yes, that's trauma. So some people will react like that. To be aggressive, they will throw charges. Another set of children will flight. Now we're looking at fight. One. Number two is flight. Now flight comes in running away, shows up in avoiding eye contact, and then of course hyperactive. Now for children, again, remember that we are all different and we are wired differently. Hi, Ellen, good to see you. Right? Now, so some children would, in a situation, instead of fighting, they will run. So you see some children who in class, they don't want to look at you eye to eye, right? They can't even stand their friends eye to eye. They, in any slightest slightest sight of trouble, they are out. Like they are moved, they've got it. It's trauma. They don't want to stand to confront anybody or anything. So that's trauma. So some will fight, some will flee. So when they see trouble coming, argument coming, they flee. So if you have a teenager who is not engaging, she doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to talk, right? They don't want to sit down, they are not confrontational, like anything, like they just want. Flight. They are running away from discussions, they are avoiding eye contact. Again, that is a response to trauma. That's a response to trauma. Then of course we have freeze. Freeze. So other children will respond to trauma by freezing. They just freeze. Or they dream. So you're always catching them outside their thoughts. So you go to a child and you're talking, and then okay, as though they zoomed out and then they're zooming back, right? And then some of them completely shut down, freeze. So they do not want to be involved. Like, so don't even involve them. They are not interested. They just freeze out. They are cold. They do not want to interact. Like, so they freeze. So at times it's not just that the child doesn't want to talk. It's not that. So most times they are dealing with trauma. So don't say, I'm always talking to you. Why are you lost in thought? Why are you like this? No, the child has frozen. Is a reaction. Thank you, Ellie. Yes, is a reaction to that's their own response to trauma. No. I don't even want to go there. So, for instance, a child whose parents, let's say the mom, passed away, right? And the mom has been so close, they are friendly, they talk, they gist, and then all of a sudden, maybe the mom fell sick and she died. So most times, such children will be lost in thought. They will just so that's their own way of grieving. You just see them staring at the window. They are not really. It's not know what is happening around them. They're not interested, but they are frozen, right? The incident has left them frozen, and so you will need a lot of talking, encouragement, motivation, maybe therapy to catch up again. So don't say, his lady doesn't want to read his book. And don't forget, this child has lost motivation. He has lost something, and he's actually traumatized. Right. So the only way he can respond to that is just being numb. Like he's not doing anything. He just doesn't want to shut him down. You lost some assignment. You say, I will flog you for coming late. If you say, don't finish your assignment, for him, like he has frozen. I think you should understand that. And then the last, which is the fourth part, the fourth response type, right, to trauma is fawn. FAWN. What does that mean? We talked about fight, right? We talked about flight. We talked about freeze. And then the fourth one here is frown. So with this set of children, they respond to trauma by over apologizing. So they've done something wrong, they apologize. Not just once, they keep apologizing. I'm sorry for what I've done. They see you again, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Sometimes, most times, they apologize when they did not even offend you. They did not offend you, you offended them, but they're apologizing. So if you see someone who is always apologizing for a wrong that they did not do, so every time, so if you have a friend, you might want to look around. If you have a friend who is always apologizing for what he or she did not do, and you want to see that child is actually responding to trauma through form, right? They're always apologizing. They are always people pleasing, so they want to please you at all costs. At all costs, they care for others more than themselves. They just like they want to outdo outdo the person. They are so, you say, "Ah, this person is so lovely, does not have clothes, but can use his money to buy clothes." No, they care for people to a fault. It's an extreme, right? So they will apologize. They are pleasing people. They are people pleasing. They are caretakers of others more than themselves. And then, of course, at all points in time, they avoid conflict. Don't forget, they won't tell you sorry when you wrong them. So they avoid conflict. And that's four ways that we can respond to trauma. So I think you want to look within you and ask yourself which of these responses am I exhibiting? And then of course for your children you want to look at them. So are they fighting? Are they flighting? Are they freezing or are they fanning? Right? Those are the ways that you want to check out if your child isn't traumatized or not. So don't just say, she's too stubborn, she stays on her own, anytime she doesn't want to talk, she's giving. The child is responding to trauma, right? Yes. And so, what are the behavioral signs? What are the signs we need to watch out for in their behavior to show that they are going through trauma? So, behavior. Talk about aggressiveness, right? So they are aggressive, they're always fighting, throwing tantrums, and then slamming the door, boom, boom, as though something has happened there. Yeah, of course, something has happened there. So they are always very aggressive. Then some of them have sleep issues. So if you go to, normally if you lie down on the bed, right, maybe sometimes you sleep off. But children who are experiencing trauma could not sleep on time. There's a difference between lying down on the bed, being on the bed, and then sleeping. So you see them sleep, but for short while, right? You can walk into the room and then they know somebody has walked in. Their sleep is not deep, right? So they could have nightmares. The child screaming out of the dream, not sleeping because of fear of something. Mom, I don't want to sleep alone. All of these are signs you should look out for. Because child is always saying, I don't want to go to bed alone. Can somebody follow me? Mommy, can you sleep with me? And all of that. Can stay on my bed. Please watch out for. That some children also begin to bed wet. They also begin to what? To bed wet. That is another sign you should watch out for. Right? So when our children bed wet, it is a sign to watch out for. Yes, because it could be that they are responding to trauma that would be okay. So we look at avoidance of certain places or people. I said it before. A child, normally children love adventure. Hello, happiness, good to see you. Children love adventure. But when a child does not want to go to a certain place, to go and visit the uncle or the auntie, the family house, or it could be weddings, it could be a park, it could be anything. Now, if a child consistently says, "I don't want to go to this place, I don't want to be here, like I don't want to go," it's a wedding, yes, but I don't want to. What do? We are not to force our children. We don't force them. But instead, you want to sit down to find out the reason why they don't want to be in that place. So they want to avoid a place or a person. Then, of course, it is trauma. Don't force them. You will go to that place. You don't like him. This child is going through something. Don't forget we define trauma as anything that a child thinks is not right because you do not know what is going on. So when a child says, "I'm not comfortable with this place," please, he or she is not comfortable with the place. Don't forget that it's not just once. So like I went to a place I don't like. On that place was so dry. I don't like it. It's different from when a child keeps insisting, "I don't want to be there," or "I don't want to be with this uncle or with this auntie." So we have to look at this, and then of course we are paying attention to it. Now, school refusal. In the morning, you are going to drop it, and every morning that child is crying. For crying out loud. It's not just one day, it's not just once in a while. Every day the child doesn't want to go to school, she was crying. Um, Please let's pay more attention. It could be that he or she is being bullied, of course, by classmates, by senior colleagues, by teachers. It could be anything. If our child is refusing to go to school, then of course we want to watch out for it. Then if there is a drop in performance, don't just say, you're playing too much, you're not reading your book. You want to find out why do you have a drop in your result. I can see that your result is not like last 10 or you are dropping. Please do not dismiss that, right? And then we have um, Extreme independence. Hmm. Extreme independence or refusal to ask for help. You see, we of course we want to raise independent children. We want to raise children who can think on the go, who can problem solve, who are critical thinkers. But hey, if your child or a teenager is extremely over dependent, then check it. Something is happening. Hi, Rotola, good to see you here. Something is happening. Check it. Yes, we want to be superheroes, but the ability to ask for help, the ability to know that we can't survive on our own, we need each other, right? Is something like very critical. And so our children must know that. So if you have a child who feels like nobody should help me, like you are asking, okay, could I help? As in everything, I'm on my own, then what is that child fighting for? Something must have happened. And then the person feels that, maybe because the woman was dependent on her husband, or my aunt was dependent on her brother, that's why what happened to her happened to her. And so because of that, I am not going to ask for help from anybody. So they are reacting to something. So don't say, my teenager is very strong, my child is very strong. She loves to do things on her own. Again, like I said, we are raising independent children, but when it's to the extreme, then that child is responding to something, right? So we want to check that, right? So don't say, now my child she's so nice, she does everything by herself without help. Hey, it's trauma. It's trauma, it's trauma. So what are we going to look at next? So what are the emotional clues? So we're looking at the behavioral, like things we have to see in their behavior to show that they are responding or they are dealing with trauma. Now, what are the things we'll see emotionally, right? And these are, I think for the behavior, we can even notice once in a while. But the emotional part, most times, again, you have to know your child, connect with your child. That's only when you know when there is a shift in behavior, right? Amazing. So, sudden mood swing. Your child is just mood swinging anyhow. This moment she or she is happy, the next moment she's sad, and then another 20 minutes, and it's like so it's like what's happening? So when we have sudden mood swings, this moment she's happy, you can't even predict again. Next moment she's sad, you want to ask, you want to, bring your spotlight on that part. Excessive fear or phobias. Again, we are human beings, we fear some places, we fear some incidents. But if your child is always fearful, there's so many fear. There's fear of light, there's fear of darkness, there's fear of road, there's fear of traveling, there's fear of heights. We have many fears and phobias. Like we want to go check it. But if your child has excessive fears, then something else have happened. Okay, so you see that for instance, your child is afraid to fly. Of course, maybe she has had of incident with plane crashes, or people had a friend or close one who had died. If your child is always afraid of sleeping in the night, maybe he or she has had scary ghosts that will come in the night, to come catch her if she's sleeping. Somehow we have so many stories that children have heard, we may not even be aware. So a child has so many fears. Once it's excessive, like it's not just a one-off thing, right? Please want to watch it. Excessive fear or phobias, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't. You want to watch that. Numbness or emotional flatness. There's no reaction on their face. Just there's some people that just keep straight face. You don't know when they're happy. You don't know when they're sad. You don't know if they are frustrated. Their face is just flat. Like if you like, win the jackpot. If you like, as you're going to work, they promoted you, you came back and then you're sharing testimony. Like they're emotionless. That I think that is even terrible. Like you don't even know when the child is happy or sad. They have just one flat face. Please, you want to watch out for that. And then constant worry about bad things. Is your child constantly worrying about something bad? So she's always everything you're sharing. Maybe we should go to um a field trip for Labiki to see you. Maybe you're going for a field trip. Anything you're sharing a story with the child, and then the only thing they will have to contribute is the bad part. So when they constantly worry that something bad will happen, So it means again it's trauma, right? Because they are reacting to it. So they're not even interested in what we want to share because somehow something bad will happen. Don't just say, you don't want to go. And yeah, no, the child is reacting to trauma. So when your child constantly worry, like about something bad that might happen to them, then of course you want to really find out that hey, what's happening. Hi Rita, good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome. Right, and then of course we have over-attachment. Over-attachment or extreme clinginess. It's not, when a child is over-attached to something, again, the child is running away from something, you watch out for it. If a child is over-clinging to something, over-attachment to something, to an event, to a place, to a person, you want to also watch out for it. So what's happening, right? Yes, that could be a sign of trauma. You also want to look at avoidance or connection with people. There's no deep connection. So if you're a teenager or an adult, again, of course, as adults, we are a reflection of what has happened with our childhood, right? So if you watch it and then of course you don't want to have deep connection with people. You have the inability to trust people. Some persons are like, nah, I cannot trust anybody in this life. Forget it, I cannot trust. Why? Because maybe they've been betrayed before, or someone they know betrayed another person. Somehow. So if you see children, teenagers, or even as an adult, if you battle with any of these things I've mentioned, of course, then of course you know that you're reacting to trauma, right? And of course you are trying not to, not to, not to trust people. When you see yourself having issues, and then of course it has a way of affecting our business because hey, you feel that your customers, your clients cannot be trusted, you feel that people you work with cannot be trusted. Everybody's a suspect. That's what happens when you're dealing with trauma. Especially when it comes to betrayal, right? Everybody's a suspect. You do not even believe that anybody should be trustworthy. Should be trustworthy. I want to watch that. Okay. And then of course, here as a teenager, if you have a child and then you see one child trying to reparent the other child, or even adults, so at any time, point in time, they're always giving advice. Hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. Why it's a beautiful thing? Again, if it's extreme, so you're trying to see that as though we're not parented well, something is wrong. They just know that something is wrong, and every time they're trying to correct. Like they're always in the correction garments, right? So again, it's one way to look at trauma. Okay, so now there are different ways traumas can play out in our children, depending on their ages, right? Yes. So the way a child will deal with trauma or respond to trauma would be different from the way a teenager would deal or respond to trauma, right? Yes. So for instance, the toddlers. For toddlers, these are children, right, and preschoolers that say between 1 year and then let's say 4 years. Toddlers, right? How do they deal with trauma? Now they have some of them have speech delays, speech delays and regression. What we call regression is, for instance, you have finished training a child in potty training. This child is this child has stopped peeing on the bed, has stopped pulling on her body, and all of a sudden the child starts doing that. So you want to like, okay, so what's happening here? Okay, speech delays, they're not talking in time. You want to really check out okay, what has happened. Then aggression, when they are playing with people, child is always hitting, child is always angry. So don't say is a child and give him or her toys or his toy. Nothing doesn't happen. So when a toddler, children, right? Of course, we know children don't love to share. Nah, they love to be with their friends. But when they are not aggressive, you want to really watch out for it, right? So that's for toddlers, and of course, school age children. How to respond to trauma would be that, of course, they have difficulty in concentrating. Again, don't forget that we looked at how trauma affects the brain. Memory brain is affected, the thinking brain is affected. So once a child is traumatized, they would don't forget the frozen part of the frown, right? They will also zone out. So you can be teaching in class, but you're not concentrating. Why? Because I'm looking at you, the teacher, but hey, my mind has traveled to maybe continue to go and buy new things. The child can be in front of you, but she's not hearing, she's not listening, she's not even seeing you. Right? And so they'll have difficulty in concentrating. And of course, some of them will now be iPad. Don't forget that in trauma, any of the extreme is bad. Don't be extreme. So any of the two extreme is bad. So at times, iPad vigilance, they are very active. Any small thing they jumped up, right? You tap the child and then like, so you want to know what's happening. They are always alert, as if they are on buttons on. Like so, any they are super alert. So don't forget to talk about how trauma also affects the alarm center of the brain, right? So that center is hyperactive. So then, yeah, they think so. You're talking to them. They talk about 10 steps. And this might be what would happen and all of that, right? So another issue to consider is excessive guilt or self guilt. If you're always blaming yourself, like I said before, when they're always saying sorry for what they did not do, they do. There's the ones that always apologizing, they want to watch out for it. Right? So when the child feels excessive guilt for what they did, what they did not do, or they are always blaming themselves, you should watch out for those for preteens. Some of them in dealing with trauma, they get involved in risky behaviors. You know, again, they don't really think because their thinking brain has been affected. One, two, is even not well developed as a teenager. And so you see some children get into some risky behavior because it just that's the way to survive, right? They get into drugs. Some of them yes, use drugs, use alcohol to survive, to suppress the pain and all of that. Some of them go into sex, right? Yeah, and then of course they begin to self harm. Risky behaviors, you just see them. So you don't just look at the kind of like, see you, bad boy, bad boy. No, you want to ask, why is this child behaving like this? Why is he behaving the way he's behaving? Detachment, self-assertion, they don't want to be with their friends, just want to be their alone. At home, they want to lock themselves inside the room and all of that. It's something you want to watch out for, right? As a 15, withdrawal from family and friends. Events, now you're no, please let's not go there. Why? Again, don't forget that it's not the one-off thing like we've established, right? It has to be consistent. Also, now I talk about drop in grades. Again, when our children do all they can, like they have a self of sleep and all of that, just to overachieve. Most of us will be happy because, hey, I want my child to be an high flyer and all of that. But at times they use it at times, please mark my word, they use it as a coping technique. They just feel that once I'm the best in the class, once I am able to top the class, then of course my self-esteem will come out. I'll use that as a control. So sometimes not because they want to, but because they want to use it as a means of control. I'm the best in my class. I'm the nobody can talk to me anyhow. Again, they feel they have experienced that being taught, being in control, right, over the class, over an event. At times, check your company, your friends, people in your friends. At times, not because they want to, but they use it as a cover up. People who have no self esteem, and they use it as a cover up. Like, so when I am, everybody will think I'm fine. Everybody will think all is well at my head. Everybody will think, but deep down within there, again, this one is not something we will see because it's only this person that knows why I want to do this. But again, we should all try for excellence. We should all try to be the top because hey, it makes us happy. It's good to be top, but some children use that as a response to trauma. So the only thing they want to do is they braid their head in their books. So you're like, my child is always reading, So let's go out for events. No, they carry their book. And then you wouldn't know that they are dealing with isolation, like they want to be on their own, they don't want to mix with people, and they're just like, my child wants to, she loves reading, and I know she doesn't like going anywhere, she doesn't like playing with people, her friends. Anytime you see her, she's reading. That is something you should look at for. Again, we should live a balanced life. Fun, family, time, and all of that. So when a child is always reading a book, please we want to ask questions. Because the other side's life, right? Amazing. And then finally, how can we respond as parents? Now that you know you've seen the signs and all of this, what are you supposed to do there, parents? Of course, you want to build connection with your children. Like I always say, it's a parent who knows the child that will notice there's a difference in the child's character or behavior, right? Yes. So you want to build connection. You want to make your house, your home, yourself a safe haven. So that they can always run to you to say, this is what has happened. Mom, this is what I'm dealing with. That is what I'm dealing with. That way you can easily help them. Okay, so they tell you that, mommy, I'm scared of this. Something's happening to you. Don't say, scared, scared. Go to your room, go and sleep there. What is there? But hey, you remember when we talk about emotions, I talk about that all emotions are valid. Not then I'm okay, so you're scared. Okay, I understand that you're scared. How does that make you feel? You're connecting with them. You're with them. You have to be calm. A child cannot be telling you a story and then you are shouting, you're jumping. No. So your child is calm, you too you have to be calm, right? Amazing. So if your child is not calm, they're nervous, they're afraid, you have to be calm. You cannot be having two people calm, right? So your own calmness can help them to remain calm. But you cannot be jumping, shouting, your child is telling you something that's happening to them, right? Then of course you want to seek help. Seek help. Seek help. So if your child is having, for instance, talk about fear, right? Phobias for things, over afraid, and of course if your child has been able to open up to you to say this is what I've passed through, this is what I'm passing through, to be able to help them seek help, right? Yes, please don't be ashamed to look for help, right? Now, for us, the parents as we try to round up for today, what behaviors have I misunderstood in my child? So look at your child, at your teenager. So which of this behavior have you misunderstood, right? It will help you retrace and then of course looking to watch out for is why is my child behaving like this? Why is she acting out like this, right? And then with that be able to help them. And then of course you want to create an emotionally safe space for them. This is what I am every time. Please don't forget that children are not really difficult to understand or they don't act most times. They don't just want to annoy us. Not like so don't think that this child is always in my name. She wants to annoy me, she wants to see what I will say. No, you want to ask, how are you feeling? How can I help you? Okay, thank you all for joining tonight. We are so happy that you are here. Thanks for an amazing time. Again, we continue the series next week, Sunday. And until then, please have an amazing week. If you have questions for me, please, you want to reach out. I will attend to it. If you have um, an issue with your child or yourself, we have a counseling session, healing from childhood trauma. You want to book the sessions for that for yourself or for your child, and we'll be happy to put your hands all through, right? Okay, so you have an amazing week. Bye bye. Okay.